What's going on? What's up? Welcome back. It's we're doing story devlog number 9. We're already to number 9. It's February 12th, and we're beginning to make our way through this. What I want to do for this video is finish up our entire storyline on Masara. And the reason I want to do that is Masara is basically like the starting point where you really begin to introduce the character into what's going on. So Masara is the entry point to where um, you start really going down the path of finding your father, connecting with Satil Shan, and becoming a Jedi, or at least training in the Force. Um, so these three main storylines begin happening on Masara. So what I want to do is lay a foundation for Masara to get all of that completely done, and then once that's finished, I can actually go and begin designing the specific areas on our map that we worked on in the earlier videos, because I do want to start um, getting into more of the actual visual design and layout and that whole sort of thing, which I love talking about the storyline, but I also love the visual design behind it and making sure it all meshes well together. Um, so, one thing I also do when I'm doing these videos is before I record my next video, I'll go back and listen to my last video just to make sure I'm still tracking with the same thought process that I had for, let's say, for example, for Devlog 8, where we talked about laying out the foundation for arriving at Tython and then working your way all the way to becoming a journeyer, going through the trials with Satil Shan and then learning about the process of becoming a journeyer and the history of the Jedi and all that stuff. So what I'm able to do when I go back and watch my videos is I'm able to expand upon my ideas and really fine tune them. Because sometimes in the spur of the moment of a video, I may not think things through as clearly as I could be, and so it's always helpful to go back and re-examine uh, the the thought process for each storyline or for each character, um, and it allows me to realign it to how it might create more depth or detail in a future video. So that's actually what I've done. You guys may not have noticed, but that's what I've been doing, and so I think that's actually really helping progress the storyline. Just allowing myself to go back and watch my own videos, and then as I'm watching them, think of what could be better, and then applying it to the next video. Um, so just to recap, I like the arrival at Tython. I like meeting a shop, like a shop owner who maybe. And what I think could happen here is this shop owner has really bad eyesight, and so spots you from afar, thinking you are your father. And then once he gets up close, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else. You look really. You resemble someone who I haven't seen for some time, and so I was excited to see them." And then that's when it brings up the conversation of your father and how maybe your father had helped out the shopkeeper or a shop owner in the past with a specific need, and so because you are, um, as the player, you are the child of the father. Perhaps the shop owner, as they warn you about a stranger um, on the on the island or on the continent of Masara that's walking around and examining the ruins, and which is Sio Bakarn at this time. Um, you know, maybe they give you out of charity a vibra sword or something like that. So I like that. Rival at Padawan Kesh. Um, I'm still trying to determine what needs to happen in order to have Sio Bakarn interested in a random individual in um, at Padawan Kesh. Like, what is it that causes him to want to speak to you and causes him to want to bring you back to Satil? I don't think at this point in time you actually need, and I may have mentioned this in my last video, I don't believe you need to do any sort of trials at this point. I think this is more just exploration, just looking through the ruins of the temple, and maybe there is something just really familiar about, or maybe an article of clothing, or maybe some writing, some papers left behind by your father, and you happen to stumble upon those, and then that's when Mitra comes to talk to you and is like, hey, I really want to help you find your father. I'm having difficulty finding him. And I think the backstory for that, if she's having difficulty finding him, the backstory could be that your father stole a Sith artifact that could possibly be an amulet that hides. And I mentioned this in one of my older videos, maybe video 4 or 5, where the Sith apprentice is gathering these artifacts. Well, one of the artifacts could be an amulet that hides the user from being discovered in the Force. And so maybe that's why Mitra has a hard time finding your father. And so you have to actually, maybe you uncover at Padawan Kesh that he was studying the Jedi at Padawan Kesh and was traveling from temple to temple. So that could provide an avenue to keep Mitra at the forefront of helping you finding your father. And then Sio Bakarn comes to you and says, hi, you don't know me, but I did overhear you speaking. Of course, I don't know who you were speaking to. And maybe it kind of piques Sio's interest that you're talking to someone in full sentences and actually responding, but he can't see Mitra because Mitra's just talking to you. But maybe Sio overhears the conversation. And so, maybe he asks, who were you speaking with? And then that's when, you kind of bring up the conversation of, you may not believe me if I told you, and he's like, try me. And so that's when you explain this character of Mitra and how she's helping you, how she appeared to you and is helping you find your father. And then that's when he's like, Sio Bakarn, a Jedi Master, is probably familiar with Mitra, Darth Revan, so he might know the name Mitra. And so at that point, that's when he takes you back to Rendezvous at the Remorse. Okay, the player finds evidence that their father was there. The player receives a visitation from Mitra, and maybe she doesn't show, like, how is she going to show another vision of your father? Maybe would they just find the evidence and she says, "Let me help you." Come on, there we go. says. Let me help you find him. Father possibly stole a Sith artifact. Like an amulet that hides the user in the Force. One of the interesting takes I want to impose on the character's father is that he's Force sensitive. I think it makes sense to do that. He begins doing some training. I think what happens is maybe on one of his travels to maybe his backstory is that he, traveling back and forth from Rolyon to Tython, maybe he just got an original job from someone on Rolyon who needed, something, supplies or something. We can come up with that later, but when he visits Tython, he uncovers that he's Force sensitive and begins exploring what that means. And so then he begins traveling from temple to temple, trying to learn the Jedi. And one thing I think that he should have an emphasis on is the rifts that were caused by the Jedi and Sith splits in what is called the Force Wars. And so I think that would be an interesting perspective to include in your party. So, for example, if you have your father and Satele both in your party, they could, while you were traveling around, they could have conversation about the actual psychology behind the Jedi and how it always fails their apprentices, and it's the reason that Darth Revan, betrayed the Jedi and all that stuff. So, and then like you could have like personal conversations with your father about the perspective of the Jedi and how they maintained balance because they were focused on not just the light side or not just the dark side, but a blend of the two, and making sure you don't swing one side to the other or the other. So so that's a take I want to go with the father on. Let's see. Rendezvous on the Remorse. Satele learns about Mitra Revan, connection to your father. Completion. We haven't done trials yet, so I'm going to fix this. And your father. Talks about their arrival to Tython and need to procure the parts to fix our ship. Another part of Masara's storyline I want to do is allow the character to be able to travel from continent to continent. Maybe let's say, for example, with the, first traveling from Masara to example to Talos. In order to make that happen, you have to help them get their ship fixed. So you can't leave Masara until the ship is fixed, and then you can travel from continent to continent. And then once you explore places, then you can fast travel to back to points of interest. Satele and the player travel to Padawan Kesh. After realizing your Force sensitivity and completion of the Padawan Kesh trials, decides to train you in the Force. Satele wishes to travel with you. Okay, we still haven't completed the trials at this time. And decides to test you. So It's here that the Sutil and the player uncover a secret entrance at Padawan Kesh and enter the halls. There they find mystery manuscripts, or history manuscripts and lore surrounding the Jedi and the temples. The player must go through the trials. Padawan Kesh trial is completed. After completing the trial, Sutil agrees to train you. The other 8 temples are identified to you and are quested with training at each one. Okay, so that's where you become a journeyer. The other parts, I'm going to just start making more cards here. And these probably don't have to be in order at this point. This is kind of like leading up to really getting the story going. And then after this point, you learn that you need to travel to all the temples to uncover or discover. Well, actually, it's twofold. You need to discover what your father was doing at each one, and then also train. So you get to learn something from each one. And then maybe as you travel to each temple, you can learn specific force powers particular to that temple. So that could be interesting. Okay, so 18, I'm just going to do, these will not be chronological order, but one of them will be traveling to the other Jedi temple on Masara, which is Bodhi, the Temple of the Arts. Okay. Bodhi, Temple of the Arts. Player travels to Bodhi to discover father's path and learn more about the Force. Okay, so that's going to be the generic thing we utilize for each temple starting out. I think there'll be a point in time that when you can actually go back later, and maybe there's like a third part to each temple that helps you find access to the Thoyor. I think that'll be pretty interesting. Like maybe you can see the Thoyor from far off, but in order to actually get into them, you have to maybe have secret access from the temple to get into the Thoyor. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Maybe you guys have a better idea. So number 18, Bodhi Temple of the Arts. The Thoyor we won't be exploring yet, at least not for the foundation of Masara. Number 19 is fixing, we'll just say helping fix the remorse, so you can begin traveling to other continents. Can travel to other continents or islands, or I will just say continents or locations. The remorse must be just fixed. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's like anything else we could have happen on Masara that would be crucial to the storyline. I think also what you do, there is a I think there needs to be a quest that happens when you join Satil's party. She says, if I'm going to help you learn the Force and help you train in the Force. You have to help us find a new location for the Jedi Order, and that's when she fills you on maybe more backstory about what happened. And like that's the whole reason she's there, is to determine if Tython's a good location. And so so I think that's when the quest starts, at least on Masara. Find the Jedi's new home. As the actually, let me see. Satele agrees to train the player in return for help finding the Jedi Order a new home, or a location for their new home. Let's see what else needs to be included on Masara. I mean, what could probably happen is there are, smaller quests within the original town that you first met when you arrived on Tython that could help. These quests could help you gather the parts needed to fix the remorse, and maybe there's just smaller side quests like helping someone find their pet. And it's just like what it's supposed to do is introduce very basic quest lines, kind of like what we might propose doing on Roll Yawn, before you can make your way to a ship and gain passage to Tython. And so we take that same approach here. Is these quests are designed to help you get familiar with the planet of Tython, get familiar with the kind of people that live there. Maybe we have different kinds of monsters that you have to, if you can remember on the KOTOR 1 and probably 2, there were certain quests that you had to go out and clear caves of like huge. I mean, they're not bats, but they look like huge bats. It's not Zabrak, right? Zabrak is a specific race. But like Korban, for example, you would have to clear out Terrantatic and different like monsters and stuff. So there could be different quests like that. I actually really think that's it for now. As far as like the beginning quests for Masara, because we figure out how we're going to start finding our father, which is going to each temple. We discover that Satele is going to train us. And at this point in time, we don't know completely yet about the Sith Apprentice. I think that should come later. I don't think that needs to be evident right now. So I'm gonna let's see. I think we'll stop this right here, or at least this portion of the video. We can probably maybe get an idea for I believe it's design assets, basic map, continents. Okay, this is the Photoshop file. So I think what we can do is maybe start kind of figuring out where things actually lie. We've already established where the locations of the temples are, but we haven't established where everything else is. So I think this is a good segue into that. We can just start really fine-tuning Masara. Excuse me. So we're just going to zoom in here. So this is actually going to be a pretty huge map. What I'd like to happen is, all right, so I'm going to just start creating some oh, what am I trying to do here? Ultimately, what I want to do is create very small triangles so that we can start like saying like, oh, this is where like maybe a mountain range is, and this is where, you know, hills are. Maybe there's a lake over here. You know, this is the location. Maybe this is the location of, um, you know, where the remorses crash landed, or you know, very um, heavily landed. And then we can, you know, maybe branch off and decide what else we want to include on. You know, maybe there's like secret caves we could go into. You know, at this point, because we're just beginning our training, you know, maybe there is a part here or there that we could find a Masara that would help us be able to build a lightsaber in the future. And kind of like how Beodor was our guide on the parts that we needed. Maybe we have another character in the party who, maybe Sio Picard, for example, that tells us what we need to have in order to um, begin finding the parts for a lightsaber. So, alright, so let me see what I can do here. You know what I can probably do is just, I'm going to do this. We're going to make this a, maybe like a, kind of like a darker gray. And see what this looks like. Stop. So I want the pin. Okay. So just like that, or something. Let me try that again. Let me zoom in here. I'm a little bit OCD, I think. Hold on. Oh, come on. Okay. That could probably work right there. Okay. So this is going to be like our little representation of mountains. I'm actually going to move it just a little bit out. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Can I just click it? Oh, you know what? I need the direct selection tool. There we go. Okay, that'll work. That works just fine. Okay, so we're going to do stuff like this. I might make it a little bit smaller. That'll work just fine. Okay, so we're just going to go through here and just start moving this stuff around. Fill white. So if that fills, okay, sweet, that won't show up behind now. So make all these white. That way it looks a little bit more appealing. So I can do some stuff like that. I'm gonna put mountains over here as well. To kind of, identify that when we're doing the actual the actual part of in Unreal Engine 4 where we're sorry, I'm trying to think and design at the same time. When we're doing it in Unreal Engine 4 where we're trying to figure out how the lands need to be shaped correctly and according to our map, this will actually come in handy. Like, we'll know that mountains need to be in this area. Maybe what happens is there is maybe a river that actually runs through here and has like a little outlet. So like this is maybe more like low-lying land going out into the sea, and this is like just some sort of like little outlet to it. And then maybe when you're actually on this little piece of land, maybe you can see some mountains off in the very far distance, just barely cresting over the ocean. That could be pretty cool. Let's see. I'll put some mountains up over here in the corner. Oh gosh. Where am I at? Oh man, this is really touchy. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. That's the right button. Okay. So I'm going to move this wrong thing. Move this over here. And I think on this one what we'll have is a mountain range that surrounds Padawan Kesh. And then, maybe something over here. There's like, maybe like a house or something like that. Or a mansion or maybe some sort of estate that's owned by someone who owns like all the land over here. He's like I don't know, some kind of retired dude with no kids who's like, hey man, I'm old and I need somebody to water my plants because I can't bend over anymore. Go water all my plants and I'll give you money. I'll give you lots of money because I got nothing else to do with my money. So I'll just give it to you. And so that could be how he actually talks. It could be like very morbid and depressed because he lives alone without a wife or someone to love him, which sounds sad, but also is often realistic. It may be like some sort of like little gold digger from the village is like trying to court him. Maybe when we walk up to the house, like this gold digger's hanging outside the front door, like "Let me in, baby," or something like that. Just something stupid. I don't know. Like I would like to have humor included in this game. I don't think it needs to be so serious all the time. Like we're quoting the Joker, like, "Why so serious?" Yeah, so we've got mountains going around here. Um, maybe just one or two more. I mean, like this gives us like a general sense, like okay, this is like a mountain range. Okay, there's that. I think what could happen now. Okay, so I've got an idea. So I think what would be pretty cool to have is like a natural spring, or like a very small river that runs from out of these mountains and splits off into two different branches. So like you would have one. All right, so I'll show you guys. I grab my pen tool, and I'm actually going to change this to maybe some kind of light blue. Not that light blue. Let's go up a little bit. This will be like a um, uh, this will represent like a river or something. So let's say, for example, you have um, some kind of natural spring. Maybe there's a little small, uh, maybe let's say like a small lake or a small pond within a portion of the mountain range, and then what overflows actually creates a river that ends up like flowing down into this right here, and then so like there's that, and then you like maybe there's like another branch off. Okay, so how about this now? Let's do we're gonna do like a maybe like some sort of kidney stone looking or kidney lake, um, and it fills that same color. So like there's our lake, right? And then so you have your one branch that goes off through there, and then maybe at this right here, and then maybe it also comes through right there, something like that. So I would like to think that like people in uh, mathematically speaking, like things would maybe gather around water. Animals naturally gather around water, so like the same would be said for people who build temples near water. So it makes sense that a um, there's some sort of water source here next to body, which is temple of the arts. So maybe like the reason they built it there is so they could reflect. See what I did there? They could reflect while they did art, and they could sit outside and like paint horses, or I guess not horses if they're in the Star Wars universe, but maybe they can paint like Pteranodons and weird looking dogs, and like no, this is my Van Gogh. Okay. um. So I like that, and then so like what we can have here is um, maybe if we zoom in here a little bit more, um, maybe this small village like surrounds like the mouth of this river, and they have like a bridge that goes over it. So I'm going to change the color to sure, we'll do purple. Why not? So I'm going to just draw like a very small area. So like that's like where the people live in this small town. Um, what should we call this place? Um, Star Wars town name generator. I love the internet. Don John. Let's use this one. I've not used this one before. Oh, this is like an actual name generator. Locations. Cool. Okay. Oh, the living city of Sinti. The luminous city of Abak. Okay. So maybe we can just take like the last name. Select. Cardio. What if like everyone's like fat in Cardio, the city of Cardio, or the small town of Cardio? SIBO. SIBO could work maybe. Let's see here. Cantu, Amon, Mari, Tandi, Holsti. Japri. Net Vala. Man, like these names are like nothing I would choose. Kanai? Kanai? It's like Hawaii. Kanai? Kanai? Kanai can maybe work. Kanai Masara? Hmm. So let's do Kanai as a placeholder. Maybe we'll come back and change the name of the city later. So I'm gonna grab this and let me grab the font for this. That's Lato. So grab that again, and we're actually gonna make the font like 6 probably. Oh, what just happened? No, I did not mean to do that. Get out of here. Okay, whoops. Let me zoom back in here. We'll do this. We're gonna make this like 6. And we're going to Kanai, right? We're gonna say that's like the district of Kanai, or the town of Kanai, the village, Kanai village. That could work. Color scheme works. Okay, so there's Kanai. I mean, in reality, what will happen is if this map is so large, like this village will actually be a lot smaller in size. I'm guessing. Up here we're going to have, let's do like a special, we'll do we can just do like a, it doesn't have to be anything specific. We'll just do a rectangle. So I'm going to have this up here be we'll fill that. And this will be the remorse. Okay. Maybe there's some mountains over here too. Let me just get some mountains in here. Because I feel like the way they would be, they're like, oh, we need to be safe. We don't want anyone to hurt us, so we want to be protected. So we're going to land here. But they also crash landed too, so it's like a little bit out of their control. But it makes sense that there might be a mountain or a few mountain ranges over here in this area. We'll do something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect for now. Alright, so there's that. This is like the expensive real estate over here, right? Like the real estate dude, real estate agent. I can put it like over here. We'll do light. Or maybe regular. We'll do regular. Because like the main points of interest are going to be the temples. We don't need to have everything in bold. Oh, regular. Okay, so I mean this guy, if we go to maybe he is like a rich Twi'lek. Chad Vita. That's definitely a Twi'lek name. We're grabbing that. His name's Chad. We'll call it the Chad Vita Estate. So like this won't be detrimental to the storyline. It'll just be like another quest that you can do here. We're gonna move this up here. Okay. All right. There's that. So we've got the location of our town. We have the location of a lake here. We have the rivers. We don't have river names yet. I don't think it's too much of a big deal. We don't necessarily need to name them right now. We have the location of the remorse, the Kenai village. We can just call it Kenai. Um, let's see here. Let's look back at what we have. Padawan Cache, Temple of the Arts, helping fix the remorse, find the Jedi's new home. So maybe this area over here is like a group of bandits, or maybe some kind of rebels to the Kanai village. So maybe the Kanai people are very passive townspeople, and these um, maybe these bandits over here are like actual like family members to these people, and they believe in the philosophy of taking everything by force, and that the people should serve them. Um, and so what they do frequently is they rob the Kanai people in order to supply themselves. And so the Kanai village are, I mean, they're surrounded by a river, so maybe they have a lot of farmland. Maybe they have, herds of cattle. Well, not necessarily cattle, but you get the drift I'm trying to give. They have uh, herds of animals that they, either sell or kill for meat, or milk um, if that's what they have in Star Wars. I guess it's blue milk, right? And maybe they have certain crops and stuff, and so maybe one of the quests is with the Kanai people is you have to go to the bandits and get their stuff back, or because we're offering choice, you could actually join the bandits in one of their raids on the Kanai people. Like you could disguise yourself, and they wouldn't know it's you. And then like the next day when you go back to the village, they'll be like, "Oh man, like this crazy guy. He like we couldn't see his face, but man, he was crazy. He was like pushing people over, and he like threatened to kill me, and like I almost peed my pants." Like you could put interesting stuff in there. Like it can make it stupid, you know. Um, so I think we'll put the bandits over here. And you know what? We might just go ahead and make, instead of that little doohickey, we'll just make it a square, like we're doing everything else. So we'll just do that. That's where Kanai is. We'll move this over a little bit. What are we going to call these people? They could be the Wet Bandits. What is it, off of Home Alone? The Wet Bandits. Yeah, the Wet Bandits. Oh man, that's a good movie. Okay, so we need Quarren. Let's see. Tazi Bandits. That could work. Or the Vuktu Bandits. I like Tazi Bandits. That can maybe work. Alright, so we've got Tazi Bandits. We'll do that. Do that. So like you can read it just fine. Scooch it up. We'll do that. Cool. Okay, so this is actually starting to feel like an actual map where there's points of interest. You know what could also be cool is including actual places of power where maybe you can increase your force points, like how on um, let's see, they did that on The Witcher where you could go and meditate and get like more power or whatever. I think you could do it with KOTOR as well. KOTOR 2, like you would, for example, like on Duxon, I believe it's when you are battling with the Mandalorians against, I can't remember who it is. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun to do that playthrough. Um, anyway, you're walking through a specific building, and I think it's just like an old temple, and so you're walking by and you see like a dark energy. Like it's like the way they represent it in the game is like dark lightning. It's like red lightning on the ground, and it represents dark energy. Um, Same thing on Korriban. So you can actually go up to it and receive um, the the power that's there. And what it does is, um, I believe it can. Well, I know for certain that it would grant you more dark side points, but I don't remember if it actually increases your force points available. So, like for example, if you were to use, um, just for the sake of context, if you were to use force lightning and it required a certain amount of force points, I don't know if doing that kind of stuff would increase your force points capacity. That's the best way I can explain it right now. So maybe we have like little quests where you want to go and search for these places of power. Kind of like on Skyrim, you had your little they look like little towers standing at the ground or like little totem poles where you could go and like receive the blessing of one of their deities or whatever. But rather than receiving the blessing of a deity, maybe you actually learn something. Um, No Man's Sky also has something like that where you find monuments or places of interest and they teach you more about the local culture of the species that inhabited the planet. So that could also be one thing. Maybe like it increases your understanding of the Jedi. So maybe they're actually Jedi monuments, and you begin to piece together um, your understanding of the Jedi, and maybe they provide some sort of um, I don't know. Maybe the Jedi found some sort of force powers that was unknown to the Jedi or the Sith. But that could be explored. Um, Point of interest. I think that would be good to have that right here. So we're gonna do like an orange triangle. So we're gonna do that. Fill it 3 sides. There we go. Oh no. There we go. I can change this. Orange. Orange. Aren't you glad I changed it? Okay. Oh, what did change that to? That is dumb. Let me change that back. I just want to change that. Oh, so it thinks it's a part of that. It's one of the quirks about Photoshop. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this Do that. And let's say Jedi Monument or something like that. That's just what we'll call it for now. Make this orange. Jedi Monument. Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. I like the little sections, and we'll obviously have stuff in between that you can do, but this is kind of like just outlining what the outskirts of each area are. So it looks good. I like it. We're really starting to flesh out what this could look like in game, as far as like maybe a map, um, where everything's located, how you're going to travel from. If you're starting off like you're arriving on the outskirts of Kenai, and they direct you towards Padawan Kesh. Well, that's where you meet CEO Picard, and then you're directed back to the Remorse. Which that makes sense in video games like this, where it's just like a lot of back and forth. And then so once the Teal joins your party, then you go back to Padawan Kesh, do your trials. You then become a journeyer, and that's when you learn that there's another temple on Masara. So you travel to Body in Hin, and then in order to travel to um, other temples or other continents, you have to fix the remorse, and maybe to fix the remorse, you have to complete other quests. So maybe the Tazi bandits have a specific part that you find out from the Kenai that would fix your ship. And so the Kenai inform you that if you help them, you can get you can get the part from the Tazi bandits. But if you go to the Tazi bandits, they'll say, "Hey, we'll give you the part if you help us rob the Kenai." So like, there's always that two-part system there. Or what you could do is like have like a third option to where you say, okay, you lie to the Tazi bandits and say, yeah, I'll help you. But then while the Tazi bandits are gone robbing the Kenai, you steal the part and just go back to your ship. Same thing with the Chad Vita estate. Maybe maybe you do try to help him find a wife, and he's just like super picky, and he wants you to find someone who actually doesn't want him for his money. So maybe you have to like go into the village of Kenai, or maybe there's another village somewhere else, or maybe there's multiple villages here. But you have to help someone, or you have to find someone for Chad Vita to marry, so that they can have a child, and then he can give an inheritance to his child, and they can start that legacy there. Because if he doesn't marry, he's just going to his estate's just gonna wither away, basically, and all that stuff. So maybe he like gives you a specific part, like he's got like spare parts of a ship, or maybe he used to have connections with I don't know. We can flesh all this stuff out later, but there's a lot of stuff we could do here, just on one continent. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to allow swimming and like actually going underwater and swimming, because that could open up more opportunities to discover, and maybe there's like certain like caves in a lake that you could swim up underneath and go up into, and like you find out there's like kyber crystals and that kind of stuff. That could be pretty cool. So we're actually going to stop it here. And I appreciate you guys joining with me on this video. I'm excited about where this is going. I love the design part. I like imagining where things could go, and how it might mesh into a landscape. So appreciate you guys, and if you guys have any suggestions about what we could include on Masara, please let me know in the comments, and maybe some different quest lines that we could include. That'd be awesome. Anyway, appreciate it. See you guys later.